No part of Britain is self-sufficient, nor has been for centuries. A common language and a common way of living unite our varied people, and the condition of that unity is transport. Our industry began with the stagecoach, the canal, and the puffing billy, with the pioneers who drove the lines and built the bridges that conquered the barriers of nature. And the growth they started still goes on. Today, we are testing new engines of revolutionary design. We are teaching new methods, whether in the loco works or in the refreshment room. We are using more mechanical devices to get jobs done quicker. We're putting up new buildings to improve the service we give. But transport, in all its complexity, is still growing and developing. Its history never stops, and 1 million people are involved in it. 1 million people, some with routine jobs, some working on new projects in out-of-the-way places, but all of them adding to transport history. Of the work they do, let's show you a sample. Just a few of the ways in which transport is always changing and growing and improving. Let's go first, then, to the north, pocketed with pits and factories, to the Pennines that stretch like a broad spine down the centre of England, from the Roman wall to Derbyshire, a natural barrier that once was accessible only to the climber and the laden packhorse, and now to railways. 100 years ago, when Manchester was growing, already hungry for coal from the pits of Yorkshire, men built a railway that climbed the mountain barrier. And at Dunford Bridge, they drove through the hills with chisel and pick to make the 3-mile Woodhead Tunnel. Their handiwork remained. The tunnel is still one of Yorkshire's links with the West, but its age is against it, and hardly a week passes without repairs and delay. Today, our men are at work again, driving once more through the solid rock of the hills to build a better tunnel alongside the old one, blasting down sandstone and shale 20 tons at a time. In spite of the excavator and the drills, tunneling hasn't changed. It isn't hard to think back 100 years to those other tunnellers, whose graves lie over the hill at Woodhead. And today, the roof is still the danger, and the rough arch, drilled and chipped out so laboriously, is still the only safeguard against the constant thrust of the mountain overhead. But this 12-foot tunnel is only a beginning, for once it's through, the whole heading has to be worked out with explosives and machines until it's big enough to take a double-track railway. And 1 million tons of Pennine rock will have been brought out into days. A 3-mile tunnel must have its ventilation shaft, sunk vertically to meet the line 500 feet below. In this 16-foot circle, machines are mostly too large and complex for the work. And like the tunnellers of a century ago, the men must get to grips with the rock and the splintery shale, and contend with water that make course without warning from underground springs. A 3 years job. 3 years fighting and changing nature. 3 years to build a tunnel through which electric expresses will pass in 3 minutes, as soon as the power is laid on and the valley line completed. Move further north now to the peninsula of Kintyre in western Scotland, where railways are few and the going difficult. Here it's our job to maintain the vigorous life of the Scottish countryside by road services and to convey to the crofter and the fisherman all that they may require.
Down in Argyllshire's far south, Campbelltown is the terminal of the Argyll group of British road services. The fishing town lies sheltered in its sound from the Atlantic beyond, surrounded by the rich farms and the small crofts of Kintyre, the wind-swept, fertile valleys, and the livestock that is their wealth. Glasgow must supply all that Argyllshire cannot produce for itself, all that miraculous assembly of the everyday which the 20th century consumes. In the past, the stagecoach and the dray worked the route to Campbelltown, then the contractors, and now the regular timetable trunk services that leave for the west by day and night. A timetable service. It sounds ordinary enough, but it's an important step in meeting the varied needs of everybody in Argyllshire. And as well as the trunk lorries, seeds and fertilizers and gear for the big farms of Kintyre can go, if the needs be, by special wagons, routed and timed to suit the farmer's convenience. There must be thousands of lorry drivers in the kingdom, but few of them have a route like this to travel, and few of our drivers weary of the run, 8 hours of it, up and down through the gears, past Lomond, alongside the shipbreakers at Gairloch Head, towards the bare side of the Cobbler and the quiet towns beyond that lead to the sea. Miles of sea-girt road still to cover. 30 miles, drenched with sun in summer and dense with freezing spray in winter, to Campbelltown. And there the fishermen prepare for sea and wait on the stores they need. There the girls in the networks weave and stitch their nets and sails to supply the deep-sea boats of Aberdeen and Purso. And there the creamery is at work, turning cream from the richest milk in the West into butter, 1/2 a ton at a time, for transport to the tables of Edinburgh and Inverness. Our transport depot at Campbelltown is tucked away behind the main street. Long ago it used to be a distillery, and it's important still today. Standing in the depot, watching the flow of goods in and out, you can trace from the things they send and receive the pattern and the life of the people. Every commodity you could mention finds its way here sooner or later. A needle, an anchor, a plough, a wedding dress. Local deliveries to town and villages go on all the time. The red lorries are everywhere in Kintyre, and everyone knows them because everyone depends on them. But the people of Argyllshire do not exist merely on the sufferance of the outside world. They're very much alive and have plenty to sell. Plenty to send back by the lorries that travel day and night on the road that links Argyll with the rest of Britain.
come south now over the border, south and east to Cambridge and the flatlands. The produce of Essex and the Fen counties must travel outwards to the rest of Britain, and in exchange the coal, steel and manufactures of the North and Midlands must be hauled to London and East Anglia. Hour by hour the laden wagons, mixed and jumbled, come into Whitemore Yard for sorting and onward routing, and the quicker they are sorted, the more use can be made of them. But the marshalling of wagons is very much an expert's job.
A train comes in with, say, 80 wagons, all for different destinations. Our job is to shunt all the wagons for the same destination onto the same road, up to a limit of 40,000 a week or so, and we've got some up-to-the-minute equipment to do it with. But the first job is to record the destination of every wagon and pass it to the controller. He can then preset the automatic points to divert the wagons into the correct roads. As soon as the wagons for the different roads are uncoupled, a locomotive must be provided.
East Rail Whitemore calling shunt able. Right round the hump and onto the back of number 3. Over.
Shunt able calling East Rail Whitemore. Your message received. Over.
Radio control saves hours a day of expensive engine time. From then on, the most difficult thing about gravity shunting is getting the speeds right. The diesel propels the wagons up the hump at a mile an hour or so. Once they reach the summit, gravity takes over. The wagons roll off at, say, 15 miles an hour, and according to the distance they have to travel, they can be slowed up by the retarder. Operating the retarder demands experience and concentration. The weight and speed of every wagon is different, and it must be slowed up just enough to bring it to a halt in its proper road. There's no let-up once a train's on the move. A wagon every few seconds, and the automatic points sorting them out one by one. Delicate loads get special attention. It's important they shouldn't run in too fast. But speed can be critical here in lots of ways.
East Rail Whitemore calling Shunt Baker. You've a cut of 7 heavies coming up, Jack. You'll have to speed up a bit to get them down. Over.
Shunt Baker calling East Rail Whitemore. My speed is now 1 mile point 5 per hour. Over.
East Rail Whitemore calling Shunt Baker. Speed up to 2 miles an hour. Off.
And the extra half mile an hour gets the 7 wagons over with a good way on them and no delay.
Moving wagons has one advantage. At least they can't answer you back. Across the other side of the country, in Bristol, our problem is moving people, especially people in a hurry. Bristol, seaport, university town, industrial centre, whatever you care to call it, it's crowded and full of people on the move. People who have to queue for the bus and don't like it. People who are irritated by the experiences that make every town dweller, sometime or other, want to live in the country. Some people even go so far as this.
Dear sir, I really must draw your attention to the disgraceful bus service on the number 22 route.
Last Tuesday evening, I had to wait at least 20 minutes for a 22 bus at Temple Meads, etc., etc. Right. Garrett, I want you to investigate this complaint.
Right, sir.
Heath, I want you to do a 4-hour check at Old Market. We need to analyze the loading there before we work out our winter schedule.
Yes, sir.
Brown and Pope,
Yes, sir.
I want you to check the loading at Victoria Rooms, and then out to the aircraft works at 5 o'clock.
Very good, sir.
In Bristol, the bus traffic office will not admit defeat by the inevitable congestion of a city that's grown too crowded. To improve matters, it's essential to find out the actual performance of the services from hour to hour. The bus observers are the fact-finders of the system, expert in detecting and recording the facts that reveal the weak places in the service. It's largely their work that enables us to deal with this kind of criticism from the public and adjust the service to the best advantage. For the public must be served at slack times as well as at busy ones, and it's not always easy to do both. Even then, the delays and hold-ups of city traffic can make a good-looking schedule look like no schedule at all. But when the pile-ups and the gaps have been checked and located, then something can be done about them. Big factories, the aircraft and tobacco and chocolate works that surround Bristol all have to be served, with their thousands of people knocking off at the same time, wanting to get to all parts of the city. Elaborate arrangements are made with the works committees to get them away quickly. People with an allotment to dig, or a game of darts to play, or maybe just a home to go to. It looks like chaos sometimes, but in fact, careful analysis has made the scheme work pretty smoothly. Smoothly enough to move 6,000 people from one factory in 20 minutes. But in bus work, nothing ever pans out quite as it ought to. So there's always a relief crew to deal with the unexpected snag. They have the consolation of sitting in the canteen with the off-duty men. But they never know where they're going or when the bus will be needed.
Traffic's very heavy on the 3, sir. Can we have relief?
Right, don't worry.
Go. Smith, driver Smith, conductor Gregory, get the bus ready for Whitchurch, will you?
Cities grow, but not the thoroughfares that serve them. Watchfulness and care can do much to ease the flow of traffic and meet the needs of those who depend on public transport.
Moving people on land and moving them on water. Not much different, you might think. But at sea, we have very different problems to deal with. The Channel is about the trickiest piece of sea you could hope to find. Some try to swim it, and one even tried to walk it. But it takes me all my time to take a ship across it twice a day. Yet our passengers always expect us to keep on time, and by and large, we usually do. Yet there's nothing certain about the sea. You can leave Cali in weather fine enough to roast yourself and make good speed. And before you know where you are, you run slap into fog. The seaman's worst enemy, fog is, he can't relax for a moment. This is the time when the lookouts come into their own, and the radar. Radar's invisible beam sweeps the sea for 30 miles, keeping watch for us. And the screen is like a kind of illuminated map, showing ships and coastlines at various ranges. Just now, France is showing, about 8 o'clock on the screen. Other ships appear as white dots. With a bit of practice, we can even pick up the marker buoys long before they appear through the fog. Radar is an extra help to the keen eye and experience of the seaman, and you can check your course against it all the time. You can keep an eye on other ships, too. There's one at 12 o'clock on the screen now, way ahead of us in the fog. But in spite of radar, you've got to keep your weather eye open and follow all the safety precautions. But you can keep going in greater safety than ever you could without it. Mid-channel now. Dover just visible on the top of the screen, and 2 vessels dead ahead of us. In this fog, we'll probably never see 'em. Dover Harbour, looking like a D lying on its back, is about 5 miles off now and getting nearer all the time. But outside, it's thick as ever it was. None of us can relax for a moment till we've brought the ship safely through the fog to the narrow harbour entrance. To put the lid on it, when we get safely into harbour, the sun starts to come out. Well, that's the channel all over, fickle as a woman any day. Anyway, we shall tie up at the Admiralty Pier, pretty near to schedule. And the boat train will leave on time, as it usually does. I doubt if any of the passengers gave the radar a thought. But then, why should they?
We have shown only a little of the work that is in progress in British transport. Of our 1 million workers spread all over the country, there are many that you may never see. All the men and women in the depots and the works. The necessary people doing the jobs you never think about, as well as all the familiar figures doing the jobs you know. But the present never stands still. The skill and experience of a lifetime, the workmanship that has overcome so many difficulties, these things create the new opportunities of the young. In all the manifold jobs of transport, it is the young people of today, trained in precision and craftsmanship, who must take over where we stop. For one job completed is always succeeded by another. And it is they who must solve the problems that we shall hand upon.